Punchinello, Volume 1, No. 25, the 17th of September, 1870 ****** Conant's patent binders for Punchinello, to preserve the paper for binding, will be sent post-paid, on receipt of $1, by Punchinello Publishing Co., 83 Nassau Street, New York City. Recommended by physicians. The best salve in use for all disorders of the skin, for cuts, burns, wounds, and used in hospitals. Sold by all druggists. Price 25 cents. John F. Henry, sole proprietor, No. 8 College Place, New York. Harrison Bradford & Co.'s Steel Pens. These pens are of a finer quality, more durable, and cheaper than any other pen in the market. Special attention is called to the following grades, as being better suited for business purposes than any pen manufactured. The 50522 and the anti-corrosive. We recommend for bank and office use. D. Appleton & Co., sole agents for United States. Punchinello Volume 1. Number 25. Saturday, the 17th of September, 1870. Published by the Punchinello Publishing Company, 83 Nassau Street, New York. The Mystery of Mr. E. Drood, by Orpheus C. Kerr, continued in this number. See 15th page for extra premiums. Bound Volume Number 1. The first volume of Punchinello, ending with number 26, the 24th of September, 1870, bound in fine cloth, will be ready for delivery on the 1st of October, 1870. Price $2.50. Sent post-paid to any part of the United States on receipt of price. A copy of the paper for 1 year, from the 1st of October, number 27, and the bound volume, the latter prepaid, will be sent to any subscriber for $5.50. 3 copies for 1 year, and 3 bound volumes, with an extra copy of bound volume, to any person sending us 3 subscriptions for $16.50. 1 copy of paper for 1 year, with a fine chromo premium, for $4 single copies, mailed free. 10 back numbers can always be supplied, as the paper is electrotyped. Book canvassers will find this volume a very saleable book. Orders supplied at a very liberal discount. All remittances should be made in post office orders. Canvassers wanted for the paper, everywhere. Address: Punchinello Publishing Company, 83 Nassau St., NYPO Box No. 2783. To news dealers. Punchinello's Monthly. The weekly numbers for August, bound in a handsome cover, is now ready. Price, 50 cents. The trade supplied by the American News Company, who are now prepared to receive orders. First and Avril steam, lithograph, and letterpress printers, embossers, engravers, and label manufacturers. Sketches and estimates furnished upon application. 23 Platt Street and 20-22 Gold Street, New York. P.O. Box 2845. Foley's Gold Pens. The best and cheapest. 256 Broadway. Wevel and Hammer, Wood Engravers, 208 Broadway, New York. $2 to Albany and Troy. The Dayline Steamboats C. Vibert and Daniel Drew, commencing the 31st of May, will leave Vestry Street Pier at 8:45, and 34th St at 9 a.m., landing at Yonkers, Newark, and Tarrytown by ferryboat, Cozzens, West Point, Cornwall, Newburgh, Poughkeepsie, Rhinebeck, Bristol, Catskill, Hudson, and New Baltimore. A special train of broad-gauge cars in connection with the day boats will leave on arrival at Albany, commencing the 20th of June, for Sharon Springs. Fare $4.25 from New York and for Cherry Valley. The steamboat Seneca will transfer passengers from Albany to Troy Bowling Green Savings Bank 33 Broadway, New York. Open every day from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Deposits of any sum, from 10 cents to $10,000 will be received. 6% interest, free of government tax interest on new deposits commences on the 1st of every month. Henry Smith, President Reeves E. Selms, Secretary. Walter Roche, Edward Hogan, Vice Presidents. Established 1866. J.A.S.R. Nichols, M.D.W.M. J. Rolfe. A.M. Editors, Boston Journal of Chemistry. Devoted to the science of home life, the arts, agriculture, and medicine. $1 per year. Journal and Punchinello, without premium. $4 send for specimen copy address, Journal of Chemistry, 150 Congress Street, Boston. News dealers. On railroads, steamboats, and at watering places, will find the monthly numbers of Punchinello for April, May, June, and July, an attractive and saleable work. Single copies price 50 CTS. For trade price address American News Company, or Punchinello Publishing & Co., 83 Nassau Street. Henry L. Stevens, Artist, No. 160 Fulton Street, New York. Geo. B. Boland, Draftsman and Designer, No. 160 Fulton Street, Room No. 11, New York. Entered, according to Act of Congress, in the year 1870, by the Punchinello Publishing Company, in the Clerk's Office of the District Court of the United States, for the Southern District of New York. The Mystery of Mr. E. Drood. An adaptation. By Orpheus C. Kerr. Chapter 18. A Subtle Stranger. The latest transient guest at the Roach House, a hotel kept on the entomological plan in Bumsteadville, was a gentleman of such lurid aspect as made every beholder burn to know whom he could possibly be. His enormous head of curled red hair not only presented a central parting on top and a very much one-sided parting and puffing out behind, but actually covered both his ears, while his ruddy semicircle of beard curled inward, instead of out, and greatly surprised, if it did not positively alarm, the looker-on, by appearing to remain perfectly motionless, no matter how actively the stranger moved his jaws. This ball of improbable inflammatory hair and totally independent face rested in a basin of shirt collar, which, in its turn, was supported by a rusty black necktie and a very loose suit of gritty alpaca, so that, taking the gentleman for all in all, such an incredible human being had rarely been seen outside of literary circles. "Landlord," said the stranger to the brown linen host of the Roach House, who was intently gazing at him with the appreciative expression of one who beholds a comic ghost. "Landlord, after you have finished looking at my head and involuntarily opening your mouth at some occasional peculiarity of my whiskers, I should like to have something to eat. As you tell me that woodcock is not fit to eat this year, and that broiled chicken is positively prohibited by the Board of Health in consequence of the sickly season, you may bring me some pork and beans, and some crackers. Bring plenty of crackers, landlord, for I'm uncommon fond of crackers. By absorbing the superfluous moisture in the head, they clear the brain and make it more subtle." Having been served with the wholesome country fare he had ordered, together with a glass of the heady native wine called Applejack, the gentleman had but just moved a slice of pork from its bed in the beans, when, with much interest, he closely inspected the spot of vegetables he had uncovered, and expressed the belief that there was something alive in it. "Landlord," said he, musingly, "there is something amongst these beans that I should take for a raisin, if it did not move." Placing upon his nose a pair of vast silver spectacles, which gave him an aspect of having two attic windows in his countenance, the landlord bowed his head over the plate until his nose touched the beans, and thoughtfully scrutinized the living raisin. "As I thought, sir, it is only a waterbug," he observed, rescuing the insect upon his thumbnail. "You need not have been frightened, however, for they never bite." Somewhat reassured, the stranger went on eating until his knife encountered resistance in the secondary layer of beans, when he once more inspected the dish, with marked agitation. "Can this be a skewer, down here?" inquired he, prodding at some hard, springy object with his fork. The host of the Roach House bore both fork and object to a window, where the light was less deceptive, and was presently able to announce confidently that the object was only a hairpin. Then, observing that his guest looked curiously at a cracker, which, from the gravelly marks on one side, seemed to have been dug out of the earth, like a potato, he hastened to obviate all complaint in that line by carefully wiping every individual cracker with his pocket handkerchief. "And now, landlord," said the stranger, at last, pulling a couple of long, unidentified hairs from his mouth as he hurriedly retired from the meal, "I suppose you are wondering who I am." "Well, sir," was the frank answer, "I can't deny that there are points about you to make a plain man like myself thoughtful. There's that about your hair, sir, with the middle parting on top and the side parting behind, to give a plain person the impression that your brain must be slightly turned, and that, by rights, your face ought to be where your neck is. Neither can I deny, sir, that the curling of your whiskers the wrong way, and their peculiarity in remaining entirely still while your mouth is going, are circumstances calculated to excite the liveliest apprehensions of those who wish you well. The peculiarities you notice," returned the gentleman, "may either exist solely in your own imagination, or they may be the result of my own ill health. My name is Tracy Clues, and I desire to spend a few weeks in the country for physical recuperation. Have you any idea where a deadbeat, one, like myself, could find inexpensive lodgings in Bumsteadville?" The host hastily remarked that his own bill for those pork and beans was 50 cents, and upon being paid, coldly added that a Mrs. Smythe, wife of the sexton of St. Cow's Ritualistic Church, took hash-eaters for the summer. As the gentleman preferred a high-church private boarding house to an unsectarian first-class hotel, all he had to do was to go out on the road again, and keep inquiring until he found the place. Donning his Panama hat, and carrying a stout cane, Mr. Clues was quickly upon the turnpike, and, his course taking him near the pauper burial ground, he presently perceived an extremely disagreeable child throwing stones at pigeons in a field, and generally hitting the beholder. "You young alderman! What do you mean?" he exclaimed, with marked feeling, rubbing the place on his knee which had just been struck. "Then just give me a 5-cent stamp to aim at your, and you won't catch it on pt," replied the boyish trifler. "I couldn't hit what I was to fire at if it was my own daddy." "Here are 10 cents, then," said the gentleman, wildly dodging the last shot at a distant pigeon, "and now show me where Mrs. Smythe lives." "All right, old Bricktop," assented the merry sprite, with a vivacious dash of personality. "Do you see that house as you scoot past the church and round the corner?" "Yes." "Well, that's Smythe's, and Bumstead lives there, too, him as is always trying to put a head on me. I'll play my points on him yet, though. I'll play my points." And the rather vulgar young chronic absentee from Sunday school retired to a proper distance, and from thence began stoning his benefactor to the latter's perfect safety. Reaching the boarding house of Mrs. Smythe, as directed, Mr. Tracy Clues soon learned from the lady that he could have a room next to the apartment of Mr. Bumstead, to whom he was referred for further recommendation of the establishment. Though that broken-hearted gentleman was mourning the loss of a beloved umbrella, accompanied by a nephew, and having a bone handle, Mrs. Smythe was sure he would speak a good word for her house. Perhaps Mr. Clues had heard of his loss. Mr. Clues could not exactly recall that particular case, but had a confused recollection of having lost several umbrellas himself, at various times, and had no doubt that the addition of a nephew must make such a loss still heavier. Mr. Bumstead being in his room when the introduction took place, and having Judge Sweeney for company over a bowl of lemon tea, the new boarder lifted his hat politely to both dignitaries, and involuntarily smacked his lips at the mixture they were taking for their coughs. "Excuse me, gentlemen," said Mr. Tracy Clues, in a manner almost stealthy, "but, as I am about to take some aboard with the lady of this house, I beg leave to inquire if she and the man she married are strictly moral except in having cold dinner on Sunday." Mr. Bumstead, who sat very limply in his chair, said that she was a very good woman, and would spare no pains to secure the comfort of such a head of hair as he then saw before him. "This is my dear friend," Judge Sweeney continued, the ritualistic organist, languidly waving a spoon towards that gentleman, "who has a very good wife in the grave, and knows much more about women and gravy than I." "As for me," exclaimed Mr. Bumstead, suddenly climbing upon the arm of his chair and staring at Mr. Clue's head rather wildly, "my only bride was of black alpaca, with a brass ferrule, and I can never care for the sex again." Here Mr. Bumstead, whose eyes had been rolling in an extraordinary manner, tumbled into his chair again, and then, frowning intensely, helped himself to lemon tea. "I am referred to your honor for further particulars," observed Mr. Tracy Clues, bowing again to Judge Sweeney. "Not to wound our friend further by discussion of the fair sex, may I ask if Bumsteadville contains many objects of interest for a stranger, like myself?" "One, at least, sir," answered the judge. "I think I could show you a tombstone which you would find very good reading. An epitaph upon my late better half. If you are a married man you cannot help enjoying it." Mr. Clues regretted to inform his honor that he had never been a married man, and, therefore, could not presume to fancy what the literary enjoyment of a widower must be at such a treat. "A journalist, I presume," insinuated Judge Sweeney, more and more struck by the other's perfect pageant of incomprehensible hair and beard. "His honor flatters me too much." "Something in the lunatic line, then, perhaps?" "I have told your honor that I never was married." Since last speaking, Mr. Bumstead had been staring at the new boarder's head and face, with a countenance expressive of mingled consternation and wrath, and now made a startling rush at him from his chair and fairly forced half a glass of lemon tea down his throat. "There, sir," said the morning organist, panting with suppressed excitement. "That will keep you from taking cold until you can be walked up and down in the open air long enough to get your hair and beard sober." "They have been indulging, sir, until the top of your head has fallen over backwards, and your whiskers act as though they belonged to somebody else. The sight confuses me, sir, and in my present state of mind I can't bear it." Coughing from the lemon tea, and greatly amazed by his hasty dismissal, Mr. Clues followed Judge Sweeney from the room and house in precipitate haste, and, when they were fairly out of doors, remarked that the gentleman they had just left had surprised him unprecedentedly, and that he was very much put out by it. "Mr. John Bumstead, sir," explained the judge, "is almost beside himself at the double loss he has sustained, and I think that the sight of your cane, there, maddened him with the memory it revived." "Why," exclaimed the gentleman of the hair, staring in wonder, "you don't mean to tell me that my cane looks at all like his nephew?" "It looks a little like the stick of his umbrella, which he lost at the same time," was the grave answer. After walking on in thoughtful silence for a while, as though deeply pondering the striking character of a man whose great nature could thus at once unite the bereaved uncle with the sincere mourner for the dumb friend of his rainier days, Mr. Tracy Clues asked whether suspicion yet pointed to any one. "Yes," he was told, Suspicion did point very decidedly at a certain person, but, as no specific reward had yet been offered in sufficient amount to justify the exertions of police officials having families to support, and as no lifeless body had yet been found, and as it was not exactly certain that the abstraction of an umbrella by unknown parties would justify the criminal prosecution of a person for having in his possession an Indian club, in view of all these complicated circumstances, the law did not feel itself authorized to execute any assassin at present. And here we are, sir, at last, near our ritualistic church, continued Judge Sweeney, where we stand up for the right so much that strangers sometimes complain of it as fatiguing. Upon that monument yonder, in the graveyard, you may find the epitaph I have mentioned. What is more, here comes a rather interesting local character of ours, who cut the inscription and put up the monument. Mr. McLaughlin came shuffling up the road as he spoke, followed in the distance by the inevitable Smalley and a shower of promiscuous stones. "Here, you boy," roared Judge Sweeney, beckoning the amiable child to him with a bit of small money, "aim at all of us, do you hear, and see that you don't hit any windows. And now, McLaughlin, how do you do? Here is a gentleman spending the summer with us, who would like to know you." Old Mortarity stared at the hair and beard, thus introduced to him, with undisguised amazement, and grimly remarked, that if the gentleman would come to see him any evening, and bring a social bottle with him, he would not allow the gentleman's head to stand in the way of a further acquaintance. "I shall certainly call upon you," assented Mr. Clews, "if our young friend, the stone thrower, will accept a trifle to show me the way." Before retiring to his bed that night, the same Mr. Tracy Clews took off his hair and beard, examined them closely, and then broke into a strange smile. "No wonder they all looked at me so," he soliloquized, "for I did have my locks on the top side backmost, and my whiskers turned the wrong way. However, for a deadbeat, with all his imperfections on his head, I've formed a pretty large acquaintance for one day." 2. To be continued. 1. Buffer is the term used in the English story. Its nearest native equivalent is, probably, our deadbeat, meaning, variously, according to circumstances, a successful American politician, a wife's male relative, a watering place correspondent of a newspaper, a New York detective policeman, any person who is uncommonly pleasant with people, while never asking them to take anything with him, a pious boarder, a French revolutionist. 2. In both conception and execution, the original of the above chapter, in Mr. Dickens's work, is, perhaps, the least felicitous page of fiction ever penned by the great novelist, and, as this adaptation is in no wise intended as a burlesque, or caricature, of the style at the original, but rather as a conscientious imitation of it, so far as practicable, the adapter has not allowed himself that license of humor which, in the most comically effective treatment of said chapter, might bear the appearance of such an intention. Answers to correspondence. Patchouli. What is the substance which enables flies to adhere to the ceiling? Answer. Sealing wax. Rosalie. What is the meaning of the term suspended animation? Answer. If you remain at any fashionable watering place after the close of the season, you'll find out. Zanisvillian. Your pronunciation of the French word bois is incorrect, else you could not have fallen into the blunder of supposing that the Bois de Boulogne and the Bois de Vincennes are gamins of Paris. Blunderbore. Your suggestion is ingenious, but the refined sentiment of cruelty revealed in it is deserving of the severest censure. It is true that the introduction of German cookery into France by the Prussians, as you propose, would in a short time decimate the population, but what a fearful precedent it would be! You can best realize it by imagining Massachusetts cookery introduced into New York, and the consequent desolation of Herculeans. Mrs. Gamp. No, neither the French nor the Prussians are armed with their guns. Your mistake arose from puzzling over those distracting war reports, in which the word Argonnes figures so conspicuously. R.G.W. What is the origin of the term Bezonian which occurs in the Shakespearean drama? Answer. Some trace it to benzene, an inflammable friend of ancient pistols. It is far more probable, however, that the word was originally written Bezanian and was merely prophetic of the well-known epithet now bestowed by Prussian soldiers on the French troops serving under Bazaine. Earl Russell, in reply to your question as to whether the thumbnail of Hogarth on which he made his traditional sketch of a drunken man, is now in an American collection, we can only state that, of course, it once formed a leading object of interest in Barnum's museum. As that building was destroyed by fire in 1865, however, it is to be presumed that the Hogarth nail perished with all the other nails, or was sold with them, as junk. Invalid. To regain strength you should take means to increase the amount of iron in your blood. Bark will do it, which accounts for the fact that the blood of dogs has a large percentage of iron. Here in New York, the ordinary way of getting iron in the blood is to have a knife run into you by the hand of an assassin, but this is not considered favorable to longevity. The romance of a rich young man. T happened, once upon a time, that there was a great city, and that city, being devoid of a sensation, yearned for a great man. Then the wise men of the city began to look around, when lo! there entered through the gates of the city a certain peddler from a foreign country, which is called Yankee Land, and behold! the great man was found. He dealt in shekels and stocks, and bloomed and flourished, and soon became like unto a golden calf, and lo! all the wise men fell down and worshipped him. Now it happened that at first, like all great men, he was misunderstood, and the people ascribed his success to his partner, so that everybody said, "The name is but the guinea's stamp, the man's a Gould for all that." But the people were soon disabused of this idea, and the name of James Fisk was in everybody's mouth. Now it came to pass that there was a certain devout man called Dedru, who was the Grand Mogul and High Priest of a certain railroad corporation called the Ray, because, while it was much in everybody's ear, no one could see anything of it or its dividends. So James Fisk went straightway unto Dedru and said unto him, Lo! Your servant is as full of wiles as an egg is of meat. Make me then, I pray you, your chief adviser, and put me in the high places. And Dedru smiled upon him, as he is wont to do, and finding that he was a stranger, he took him in, and knowing that all were fish which came unto his net, he straightway put him in the high places in Re, saying unto himself, I will take this lamb and fleece him. So Fisk sat high in Re. But it came to pass very soon thereafter, that Dedru and Fisk fell out, some say about the division of the spoils which they had taken from the enemy, which, being interpreted, is the people, while others do state that Dedru attempted to cut the wool from Fisk, but that it stuck so tightly that Fisk caught him. Anyhow, it came to pass, very soon, that Dedru was sitting on the outside steps of Re, and Fisk was sitting on Dedru's throne. Then Fisk ruled Re, and he took the stock and he did multiply it manifold, which is called, by some people, watering. Now it happened that a certain man named Pyke did build him a costly mansion on the street which is called 23rd, and did therein have foreign singers and dancers, and players upon the violin, which is called the fiddle, and upon the bass viol, which is called the big fiddle, and upon sheets of parchment, which are called the drum, and upon divers other instruments. And Fisk looked upon the mansion, and it seemed good in his eyes, and he said unto Pyke, Sell me now your mansion. And Pyke did sell unto him the mansion, and the foreign singers and dancers, and the players upon the violin, which is called the fiddle, and the players upon the big fiddle, and the players upon the drums, and the players upon divers other instruments. And Fisk forthwith built himself a throne there, and did make the mansion the palace of Re. And he would sit upon his throne and view the foreign singers and dancers, and the players upon divers instruments, and would much applaud, when his foreign dancers did dance a certain dance, wherein the toe is placed upon the forehead, and which is called the cancan. And all the people came and worshipped him and his foreign singers and dancers, and players upon divers instruments, and his great diamond. And Fisk was called Prince Re. Then it happened that Fisk much desired to command upon the ocean, so he forthwith bought him a line of steamers, which did run to the foreign land, which is called Yankee Land, and he placed thereon a goodly number of his players upon divers instruments, and he did buy him a coat of many colors, and did stand upon the landing place, which is called the dock, and the players upon divers instruments did play, Hail to the chief, and all the people did shout, Hurrah for Admiral Fisk, Prince of Re, for he was of a noble stature, being 4 hands wider than his fellows. Now it came to pass that divers envious persons did institute certain troublesome actions, which are called suits, against him, and did endeavor to drive him from the land. But Fisk took a field and went before a barnyard, and did rout these envious persons, and did smite them on the hip, which, being interpreted, is that he dismissed their suits, and did smite them on the thigh, which, being interpreted, is, did make them pay costs. But the field and the barnyard were much employed. Then Fisk took into his counsel divers persons, dealers in shekels, and did say unto them, let us find us a man who can tell us whether those in high places will sell gold. And if he say unto us, Nay, let us buy much gold and make many shekels. And the divers persons, dealers in shekels, were astonished at his shrewdness, and were all of one accord. Then Fisk found him a man who did say unto him Nay, and Fisk and the divers other persons did buy much gold. Now it happened that those in high places did sell gold, and Fisk and the divers other persons were sore afraid, and did fall upon each other's necks and did weep. But Fisk straightway recovered and said unto them, Lo, if I do murder and the doctor say that I was insane, am I not forthwith discharged? And they said unto him, It is even so. Then said he unto them, Let us send our broker into the board, so that he shall act like an insane man, and can we be held for an insane man's purchases? And they were filled with great rejoicing. And the broker did go into the board, and did act like an insane man, and Fisk and divers other persons did retain their shekels. And it was Friday when they did these things, and when they had done them they laughed until they were black in their faces, and the day, is it not called Black Friday? Then Fisk did bring unto himself other boats and other roads, and waxed powerful, and became great in the land, and he was much interviewed by the scribes of a certain paper, it shines for all which, being interpreted, is the moon, and his sayings, can they not be found in the pages of it shines for all which, being interpreted, is the moon, and are they not preserved there for 2 centuries? And then it came to pass that Fisk sat himself down and sighed because there were no more worlds to conquer. But straightway he resolved to become a colonel. So certain persons endeavored to make him commander of the 99th Regiment of Foot, but a certain old centurion, which is brains, ran against him and overcame him. But the soldiers said unto each other, Is it not better that we should have body than brains, and had we not better take unto ourselves the fleshpots? So they deposed Brains and chose the Prince of Ray as their commander. And he straightway submitted them to 12 temptations. Now it happened, that, as he was marching at the head of his soldiers in the place wherein these 12 temptations are kept, a certain servant of one Mammon did serve upon him a paper, which is called a summons, and did command him to pay for his butter. At which Fisk was much enraged and did wax wroth. And thereupon he did march and countermarch his soldiers many times. And he ordered another coat of many colors, and lo! In all Chatham Street there was not cloth enough to make it, so they brought it from a foreign land. And it came to pass that he and the centurion, which is brains, for should not body and brains work together, did march the soldiers down the street which is called Broadway, and did take them to the branch which is called Long, and there did divers curious things, all which are they not found in the paper, it shines for all which, being interpreted, is the moon. Now it happened that one Horace he, being a Prussian, did fall upon Fisk and did berate him in a paper, which is called the Tribune. And Fisk became very wroth and did stop the sale of the paper, which is called the Tribune, upon his roads. And Horace he, being a Prussian, was sore afraid, and did fall straightway upon his knees, and did say, Lo, your servant has sinned. I pray thee forgive him. And Fisk did say, I forgive thee, which, being interpreted, is, all right, old coon, don't let me catch you at it again. And Fisk did divers other strange and curious things, but are they not written down daily by the scribes of the paper? It shines for all which, being interpreted, is the moon, and cannot he who runs, read them there. Lot. From the Spirit of Lindley Murray. When is a schoolboy like an event that has happened? When he has come to pass. The watering places. Punchinello's vacations. Vain heading. This paper is not intended to communicate anything about a vacation. Would that it were, says Mr. Punchinello, from the bottom of his heart. Last week Mr. P intended going to the White Mountains. But he didn't go. On his way to the 23rd Street depot, he met the Count Johannes. "Aha! My noble friend," said the latter. "Whither away?" Mr. P explained whither he was away, and was amazed to see the singular expression which instantly spread itself over the countenance of his noble friend. "To the White Mountains," cried the Count. "Why, my good fellow, what are you thinking of? Do you not know that this is September?" "Certainly I do," said Mr. P. "I know that this is the season when nature revels in her richest hues, and aurora gilds the fairest landscape, when the rays of glorious old sol are tempered by the soft caresses of the balmiest zephyrs, and, oh, certainly." "Certainly," cried the Count, "I have no doubt of it, not the least bit in the world. In fact, I have been in those places myself when a boy, and I know all about it. But let me tell you, sir, as amicus curiae, and I assure you that I have often been amicus curiae before, that society will not tolerate anything of this kind on your part, sir. The skies in the country may be bluest at this season, sir, the air most delicious, the scenery most gorgeous, and accommodations of all kinds most plenty and excellent, but it will not do. The conductor of a first-class journal belongs in a manner to society, and society will never forgive him for going into the country after the season is over. As amicus curiae, amicus your grandmother, sir, said Mr. P. What does society know about the beauties of nature, or the proper time for enjoying them? Society knows enough about it, sir, cried the Count, drawing his sword a little way from its scabbard and letting it fall again with clanging sound. And representing society, as I do in my proper person here, sir, I say that any man who would go into the country in the latter part of September is a what, sir, said Mr. P, nervously fingering his umbrella. Yes, sir, he is, sir. Do you say that, sir? In your teeth, sir. T's false, sir. What, sir? Just so, sir. To me, sir. To you, sir. The Count Johannes drew his sword. Mr. P stood en guard. Just at this moment the Greenwich Street Cordwainers Target Association, preceded by one half the whole body of Metropolitan Police, approached the spot. The target society were out on a street parade, and the policemen marched before them to clear Broadway of all vehicles and foot passengers, and to stop short, for the time, the business of a great city, in order that these 20 spindle-legged and melancholy little cobblers might have a proper opportunity of showing their utter ignorance of all rules of marching, and the management of firearms. Perceiving this vast body of police, with Superintendent Jordan at its head, advancing with measured tread upon them, the Count sheathed his sword and Mr. P shut up his deadly weapon. Slowly and in opposite directions they withdrew from the ground. It was too late for Mr. P.'s train, and he returned to his home. There, in the solitude of his private apartments, he came to the conclusion that it would be useless to oppose the decrees of society. The idea that the Count, that worthy leader of the Metropolitan ton, had put into his head, was not to be treated contemptuously. He must give up all the fruity richness of September, the royal glories of October, and the delicious hazes of the Indian summer, pack away his fish hooks and his pocket flask, and stay in the city like the rest of the fools. This conclusion, however, did not prevent Mr. P from dreaming. He had a delightful dream that night, in which he found himself sailing on Lake George, ascending Mount Washington, and participating in the revelry of a clambake on the sea-girt shore of Kings and Queens and Suffolk counties. As nearly as circumstances will permit, he has endeavored to give an idea of his dream by means of the following sketch. Taken as a whole, Mr. P is not desirous that this dream should come true, but taken in parts he would have no objections to see it fulfilled as soon as society will permit. Which will be, he supposes, about next July. In the meantime, he advises such of his patrons as have depended entirely upon his letters for their summer recreation, and who will now be deprived of this delightful enjoyment, to make every effort to go to some of our summer resorts and spend a few weeks after the fashionable season is over, that is, if they think they can brave the opinion of society. It may not be so pleasant to go to these places as to read Mr. P.'s accounts of them, but it is the best that can be done. The following little tale piece will give a forcible idea of how completely Mr. P has given up, for the season, his field sports and country pleasures. Copies may be obtained by placing a piece of tracing paper over the picture and following the lines with a lead pencil. The Poems of the Cradle. Canto 6. Taffy was a Welshman, Taffy was a thief, Taffy came to my house and stole a piece of beef. I went to Taffy's house, Taffy wasn't at home, Taffy came to my house and stole a mutton bone. It is not often that a poet descends to the discussion of mundane affairs. His sphere of usefulness, oftentimes usefulness to himself, only, lies among the roseate clouds of the morn, or the spiritual essences of the cerulean regions, but, like other human beings, he cannot live on the zephyr breeze, or on the moonbeams flitting o'er the rippling stream. Such ethereal food is highly unproductive of adipose tissue, and the poet needs adipose like any other man. And our poet is no exception to the rule, for he well knew that good digestible poetry can't be written on an empty stomach. It is seldom that a writer is met with, who does not seize every opportunity to attract attention to his own deeds. He is never so happy as when, in contemplation, he hears the remarks of his readers tending to his praise for the noble and heroic deeds he makes himself perform. But with our poet, and we have been exceptional in our choice, he has always been backward in coming forward, and it was not until he was touched upon a tender point that he concluded to make himself heard, when he might depict, in glowing terms, some of the few ills which flesh is heir to. The opportune moment arrived. He had been out since early dawn, gathering the dew from the sweet-scented flower, or painting in liquid vowels the pleasant calmness of the cow pasture, or mayhap echoing with high pencil's point the well-noted strains of the Shanghai rooster, when the far-off distant bell announced to him that he must finish his poetic pabulum, and hurry home to something more in accordance with the science of modern cookery. He arrived and found his household in tumult. "Who's been here since I've been gone?" sang he, in pathetic tones. And he heard in mournful accents the answer, "Taffy." Could anything more melancholy have befallen our poet? He could remember in childhood's merry days the old candy woman, with her plentiful store of brown sweetness long drawn out, and how himself and companions spent many a pleasant hour teasing their little teeth with the delicate morsels. Now his childhood's dreams vanished. He remembered that Taffy was a Welshman. And then, after a careful scrutiny of the larder, assisted by the gratuitous services of his ever-faithful feline friend, Thomas, he found the extent of his loss. Taffy was a thief. He now gave vent to passion, while anguish rent his soul. Taffy had been here, and made good his coming, although the good was entirely on Taffy's side, for he walked off again with a piece of beef, and was, even at this very moment, smacking his chops over its tender fibers. All his respect for Taffy now vanished like the misty cloud before the rays of the morning sun. He buckled on the armor of his strength, departed for Taffy's house, determined to wreak his vengeance thereon, and scatter Taffy, limb for limb, throughout his own cornfield. "Woe, woe to Taffy," he muttered between his clenched teeth. "I will make mincemeat of him, I will enclose him in sausage skins, and will send him to that good man, K.I.E. Sampson." Judge of our poet's chagrin, however, when, on arriving at Taffy's house, he was informed, with mocking smiles, Taffy wasn't at home. Here was a fall to his well-formed plans of vengeance. All dashed to the ground by one foul scathing blow. But whither went Taffy? The poet himself could tell you if you waited, but we will tell you now. Taffy liked beef, liked it as no other human liked it, for he could eat it raw. And when, foraging around the village, he found a nice piece at the poet's house, his carnivorous proclivities induced him to steal it, and, with it under his arm, hurried off to the nearest barn, and there rapidly devoured it. This only seemed to give him an appetite. He went foraging again, but this time only picked up a mutton bone. "The nearer the bone, the sweeter the meat," cried Taffy, and with a flourish he hastened to his hiding place, while the poor poet, disconsolate in his first loss, returned home only to find a second, and the culprit was still free. Ah! My kind reader, here was a deep cut to our poet. Who would care for mother now, he sang, for all the meat was gone. Home was no longer the dearest spot on earth to him, since it was rudely desecrated by the hands of Taffy, of David, the Welshman. Poor poet! Cruel Taffy! Let me draw the curtain of popular sympathy over the unhappy household. The poet has told his story in words which will never die, and he has proclaimed the infamy of Taffy to the uttermost corners of the earth. Sweeping reform. The world moves. There is a chiropodist now traveling in the East who removes excrescences of the feet simply by sweeping them away with a corn broom. When last heard of he was at Alexandria, and there is no corn in Egypt, now. Our explosives. What between nitroglycerin, kerosene, and ordinary gas, New York City has, for years past, been admirably provided with explosives. Now we have to add gasoline to the interesting catalogue of inflammables. What gasoline is, we have not the slightest notion, but, as it knocked several houses in Maiden Lane into ashes a few days since, it must be something. Crinoline, dangerous as it is, would have been safer for Maiden Lane than gasoline, and more appropriate. In the present dearth of public amusements, these jolly explosives, gasoline, tuolin, nitroglycerin, and the rest of them, come in very well to create a sensation. They keep the firemen in wind, and, as the firemen keep them in water, the obligation is reciprocal. Let gasoline, as well as crinoline, have the suffrage, by all means. Aggravating. The war news is becoming dizzier every day. It is now announced that the Prussian headquarters are at St. Dizier. Anatomical. A young man who lost an arm, some 2 weeks since, insists upon it that he still feels pain in the arm and fingers. Daily paper. This is strange, certainly, but not more so than the statement of our young man, Tom, who affirms that, having had his arm around Anna's waist some 3 weeks ago, he still feels the most bewitching sensations in that arm. Who can explain these things? Prosicosodi, pure, apparatus, as old Nap said to young Nap, when the Teutonic bullets flew about them at Saarbrück. We don't know whether it is correct, but this is Punchinello's idea of the chasse pot. A fact from Lake Superior. Shipwrecked Cockney. I say, Captain, are there any bears about here? I've come prepared for a little sport, you know. The charge of the 9th Brigade. Colonel Fisk, Jr., marched his men up to the Continental Barroom this evening and gave them a carte blanche order for drinks. Special to morning paper. Half asleep, half asleep, half asleep, onward into the barroom bright strode the 600, forward the 9th Brigade. Charge this to me, he said. Into the barroom, then rushed the 600. Topers to right of them. Topers to left of them. Old sots in front of them, parleyed and wondered, yet into line they fell, Boldly they drank, and well into the jaws of each, into the mouth of all, drinks went, 600. Flashed the big diamond there, flashed as its owner square treated his soldiers there, charging a barroom, while all the beats wondered. Choked with tobacco smoke, straight for the door they broke, pushing and rushing, reeled from the Bourbon stroke, shattered and sundered, thus they went back, they did, on the 600. Whiskey to right of them, cocktails to left of them, popping corks after them, volleyed and thundered, yet, 'twere but truth to tell, many a hero fell. Though some did stand it well, those that were left of them, left of 600. Oh! What a bill was paid, oh! What a noise they made, all Long Branch wondered, oh! What a noise they made, they of the 9th Brigade, jolly 600. A sunburst. The sun regretfully announces that Punchinello is about to give up the ghost. Punchinello begs to assure the sun that he doesn't keep a ghost, though, at the same time, the mistake was a natural one enough to emanate from Mr. C.A. D.B. Dana, who keeps a real ghost in his closet. A natural mistake. An advertisement from the establishment of Messrs. A.T. Stewart and Company, announces, among other things, that they have opened a Madder print. At first sight we supposed that the firm in question had begun publishing a paper in opposition to the Sun, and that it was to be, if possible, a madder print than that luminary, for the purpose of cutting it out. Further reflection convinced us, however, that the print in question was connected with the subject of dry goods, only. Very small beer. Newspaper items state that the editor of the Winterset, Iowa, Sun, is, probably, the smallest editor in the world. Surely the editor of the New York Sun must be the one meant. Well, I'm blowed. As the omelette soufflé said to the cook at the Saratoga Convention. Horace Greeley, to Roscoe Conkling. Don't be rash, now remember that a soft answer turneth away wrath. Roscoe Conkling. Let us have peace, by all means. But if that fellow Roy Fenton interferes with me, he had better look out that I don't smash his slate. Hiram Green to Napoleon. Napoleon I and Napoleon III, lager beer a formidable enemy to overcome. Skenesborough, nigh on to Vermont, August, 1870. Friend Lewis, as I hain't got no answer to my last letter which I wrote to your Royal Majesty a few weeks ago, it has occurred to me, that maybe you don't feel well about these days, or, just as like as not our cousin German Fritz, might have been mean enough as to gobble up your mail bag, and steal my letter to put into his autograph album. I now take my pen in hand to inform you, that I'm as sound as a Saddle Rock oyster, and hope these few lines may find you enjoyin' the same blessin'. Numerous changes have taken place since your grand invasion of German Sile. It has certainly been very kind in your Dutch friends to save you a long journey to fight them. Instead of putting you to the trouble of going away from home for a little excitement, you can set right in the heart of your own country, and enjoy the fun. A man by the name of Nero, was once said to do some tall fiddlin' when Rome was burnin'. While the patriotic fires of your people is clusterin' around you, my advice is, to quote the words of Uncle Edward, hang up your fiddle and your bow, lay down your shovel and the hoe. Where the woodbine twineth there's a place for Uncle Lou, with Eugenie and little Louis for to go. The foregoing is rather more sarcastical than truthful. It lacerates my venerable heartstrings, most noble pea-cracker, to see how you've been licked. You have probably found out by this time, that the mantle of your great-uncle has passed into the hands of some other family. The great Bonaparte was called the grey-eyed man of destiny, although I don't know what country that is in, as the village of Destiny ain't on any of the war maps. I should judge, however, unless there is a change in the program, that when this cruel war is over you will wear the belt as the champion black-eyed man of Europe. Your so-called ascendant star is probably the identical luminary which Professor Dan Bryant refers so beautifully to, in his poem of Shoe Fly. It shone rather scrumptious, in the dark, but the rays of the sun has knocked its twinkle higher en Gilderoy's kite. Yes, Squire Bonaparte, your star is the only planet whose eclipse has been visible to the naked eye, all over the world, and can be seen without usin' smoked glass. I think, in the beginning of the war, when you left Eugenie for Nancy, that, like your uncle, you made a bad go. When the old man stuck to Josephine he was a success. Empires, kingdoms, potentates and Hottentots took the first train and skedaddled, when the general sought his affections on their territory. The Bourbons fled and come over here and settled in Kentucky, and commenced marking whiskey, paying a tax of $2 per gallon, and selling the seductive fluid for $1.50 per gallon, getting rich at that, which may surprise you, although it isn't our eternal revenue officers, who, as Mr. Anthony remarked of H. Beecher Stowe when she stabbed Lord Byron, are all honorable men. Finally Bonaparte went back on Josephine, which made Mrs. B scatter a few buckets of teardrops. Said your uncle, what's the use of blubbering about it? Cheer up and be a man. I belong, body, soul and buttes, to France, who says my name must be perpetuated. You, Josephine, must pick up your duds and look for another boarding house, for you can't run the Tuileries any longer. He then sent to Chicago and got a $10 divorce, and married Maria Louisa, after which he became a played-out institution, employing his time walking in solo with his hands behind him, gazing intently on the toes of his buttes, and wondering if they was the same ones which had hissed so many rulers off of their thrones. In view of the past, you should have stuck to Eugenie, who, I understand, is good-looking and sports a pretty knobby harness. The charms of Nancy may make your imperial mouth water, but let an old statesman, who has served his country for 4 years as Gusties of the Peace, say to you, don't be a fool if you know anything. Another reason of your unsuccess is that Lager is a hard chap to fight agin. I tried it once. A Dutch military company visited Skenesborough a few years since, for a target shoot, bringing a carload of lager beer and a box of sardines for refreshments. I, being at that time Gusty's, was on hand to help her serve the peace. Lager, they told me, wasn't he intoxicating? I hissed in a few mugs. I wouldn't he just say that I got soggy, but I felt like a whole regiment of Dutch soldiers on general training day. It suddenly occurred to me that Mrs. Green had been putting on rather too many airs lately, and I would go in and quietly remind her that I was boss of the ranch. Picking up a horsewhip, I shouldered arms and entered the kitchen as bold as the brave Fisk of the Bully Ninth. "Maria," said I, addressing Mrs. Green, and tipping over her pan of dishwater so she couldn't wet my clothes, "you're aven't he, hick. Told the markers are true, hick, wife oughter. I can't, hick. Are they any more of your, hick, darn foolin'? Will your, hick, be your husband like a, hick, man, in the future?" I raised the horsewhip to give her a good blow. She caught it on a fly with both hands, as I laid down on the floor to convince my wife I was in earnest in what I said. Well, Louis, I remember feeling as if I was put into a large bag with a lot of saw logs, and was being vitally shoot up. I could also distinguish my wife, flying about as if she had taken a contract for thrashing a lot of oats, and hadn't he but a few minutes to do it in, and somehow I got it into my head that I was the oats. I went to sleep in a cloud of horsewhips, hair and pantaloon buttons wrapped up in a dilapidated suit of clothes. When I awoke, I looked as if that Dutch military company had been using me for a target, substituting my nose for the bullseye. I immediately come to the conclusion that to successfully buck again lager beer was full as unhealthy as trying to get a seat in H. Ward Beecher's church on Sunday mornings, afore all the pew holders had got in. When you want an asylum to flee to, come to Skenesborough. Although you have got the ship of state stuck in the mud, I think I can get you a canal boat to run, where you can earn your $115 a month, provided your wife will do the cooking for the crew. This is better than being thrown onto the cold charities of the world, especially where a man has got the gout, for anything cold enough to bring on the pain and make him puke. Hoping that in the future, as you grow older, you may learn wisdom by cultivating my acquaintance, and with kind regards to Eugene and Bub Bonaparte, in your native tongue I will say, bonjour, noblesse P. Cracker. Your N1 and inseparable, Hiram Green, Esquire, late Gusties of the Peace. Bunsby's War Paint. Napoleon's chances are not great if German facts are true, but if he finds not Paris green he'll make the Prussian blue. Remark by a bandsman. Once upon a time the French horn was a famous instrument, but now, considering the retreating strategy of the French leaders, it appears to be superseded by the off-I-glide. The music of the future. Considering the enormous difficulties which stand in the way of the performance of Herr Wagner's music, it is the music of the few sure enough. A relic of the past. The following item is taken from a daily paper. The septuagenarian DJs sang the Marseillaise at the Parsi Theatre lately. There seems to be a mistake here. Surely the word Parsi is meant for Parsi. Precocious. Little female America, too, asserts her rights and especially the right to the exclusive use of the sidewalk for a rope walk. Our portfolio. Well, you know, dear Mr. Punchinello, this is how Charlie Daney and me come to have our falling out. We was boys together, was Charlie and me, and went to the same school. Charlie were a likely lad there, never given to spill in the faces of other boys nor splash in mud on their clothes. Oh! But hasn't he gone back on them good old times? I wouldn't have believed it, Charlie, no I wouldn't. But, as I was saying, he were a likely lad, studying hard, and often telling me how he would one day come out at the head of the heap, graduating before the squire's son, Jack Balderback. Just about this time I was took with the measles, and father died, and Sally got married, and the old woman said to me, Ephraim, I think your school days is ended. And so they was. I never went back again, and never saw Charlie these 35 years gone now, till other day. I went west in search of a living, and he took on to business here east. Once in a long time I heard on him, how things went well with him, and how he got up, till the ladder wasn't big enough and he couldn't climb no higher. Folks said he was into the war, but I didn't believe 'em. Charlie was a peace man, I knowed that. Afterwards, howsoever, it come out that it was the War Office he was into, and not the war, and says I to myself, Ephraim, says I, didn't I tell you so, and tell them so, and warn't I right? I calculate they won't go back no more on what I says about Charlie Daney. Well, dear Mr. Punchinello, I was one day reading of your paper, and I comes on to something about somebody, which it was as I spell it, Charles A. Darner, how he was a cuttin' up shines, and how you was a pokin' fun and hard things at him. I laughed right out. That's smart, says I. Yes, that's smart, but it ain't on to my Charlie. He ain't stuck up nor nothing of that sort. He is as innocent as gooseberries, is the Charlie Daney I know, and afterwards I thought no more about it, till I come on to New York for to look into the cattle business, and see how things was shaping for trade this winter. I put up to the St. Nicholas. Well, I allers laugh when I think of it. Here was an Irishman took my bag, slung it behind him, and says he to me, follow me, if you please, sir. I followed accordine. I've clumb some pretty tall hills in my day, Mr. Punchinello, but that getting up them stairs jest switches the rag off of all on 'em. I broke down. Then he took me to a heister, and landed us next to the roof. I was too pegged out to wash or fix, so I flung off my cowhides, jumped onto the bed and slept clean through till next day. In the morning I rigged up, went downstairs, and asked the clerk if he would be kind enough to point out to me where I might see Charlie Daney. He sort o' smiled like, and said I would find him at the Sun office. I paid $2 for a cab to take me down, which it did till we stopped afore a big yaller house, with a big board stuck up agin it having these words, Extra Sun. Elopement at Murray Hill. Full history of the parties. Interesting chapter of family secrets. Who is she and why did she do it? General Grant buys a Skye Terrier. Particulars of the sale. Genealogy of the dog. Secretary fish bobbing for Spanish eels, he is caught by the gills. The minion of Spanish tyranny in distress. Kitchen councils in Fifth Avenue. Notes by our keyhole reporter. Baby found in the private office of a leading editor. Whose is it and how did it come there? Interesting disclosures of a prominent merchant's life. For full details see Extra Sun, price 2 cents. Wonder if Charlie writ all that says I, inwardly, inquiring of a boy where Mr. Daney's particular holding out place might be, and giving him 3 cents to show me the way. Drawing a quick breath, I knocked at the door. Come in, says a peskish voice. I come in, and there, sure enough, with nose close down to the desk, a right in away for dear life, sat Charlie. I knowed him to onkty, for all he was a little oldyish, and a little greyish, and had a bare spot like a turtle's back on the top of his head. My heart come a-bustin' up into my throat, and an inward voice seemed to say, do it now Ephraim, do it now, while the feeling is on to you. Just then he looked up, and I bust forth, oh, Charlie. Charlie. It's a long time sin we met, Charlie. Don't you know me? Don't you remember little EPHXLs? Oh. Charlie, Charlie, give us a grip of your knob, old hunk, and I slewed over towards him for to shake hands when he suddenly drawed back, kinda gloomy like, putting down his pen and chewing his gum sort of swatch-wise. As he said, my name, sir, is the Honourable Charles Augustus Dana, ex-Assistant Secretary of War, ex-proprietor of the ablest paper in the West, and at present chief editor of the New York Sun, price 2 cents. There is no individual here, sir, answering to the appellation of Old Hunk, and, as I perceive, sir, that there is a most infernal smell of cow yards about your ailment, and the effluvia arising thence is becoming insupportable. I would thank you to get out of this apartment double quick, and I suggest for the sake of others who may be unfortunately brought into contact with you, that my friend the Honourable William Manhattan Tweed has recently established public baths where such creatures as you may undergo purification before venturing into the presence of gentlemen. It was Charlie who spoke it, Mr. Punchinello, there is no doubt about that, but the Charlie that I knew has been dead sin that day. Yours in memorem, Ephraim Eccles. Horrors of war. Much has been said about the Prussian demonstrations at Strasbourg. If half what we hear of Prussian vandalism as displayed at the siege of Strasbourg is true, demonstration is a very appropriate term for the thing. Olive Logan. I have no authentic record of the date of this fair Siren's birth. It is popularly supposed, however, that she was contemporaneous with Pocahontas. Pokey, as she was playfully called by her playmates at boarding school, is now dead. Lorgy, another playful appellation of the gushing miss alluded to, is still olive. We do not, however, credit the legend above cited. Also, we do not credit the equally absurd and unreasonable story that our girlish gusher is a daughter of a Negro preacher named Logan. We look upon this as a colorless aspersion of our subject's fair fame, and we therefore feel called upon to politely but furiously hurl it back in the teeth of its degraded and offensive inventor. Things are come indeed to a pretty pass when a lady of Miss Logan's position may have her good name blackened, not to say sooted, by associating it with that of a preacher. Besides, Logan was himself born in 1800, and is therefore only 70 years old. These things are not to be borne. Miss Logan is 17 years of age. This, at least, is reliable. We have our information from the lips of an aunt of the Honorable Horatius Greeley, who met Miss Logan in Chicago in 1812, and wrung the confession from the gifted lady herself. Mr. Greeley's aunt, we need not say, is incapable of telling a lie. At the early age of 6 weeks our illustrious victim made her first appearance as a public speaker. This was at Faneuil Hall, Boston. She was supported on that memorable occasion by a young and fascinating lady by the name of Anthony, Susan. Susie prophesied then, it will be remembered, that the fair oratress would yet live to be President of the United States and Canada's. Miss Logan, with her customary modesty, declined to view the mysterious future in that puerile light, gracefully suggesting, amid a brilliant outburst of puns, metaphors and amusing anecdotes, that Susie distorted the facts. Miss Anthony, under a mistaken impression that this referred to her peculiar mode of keeping accounts, offered, with a wild shriek of despair and disgust, to exhibit her books to an unprejudiced committee of her own sex, with Wendell Phillips as chairwoman. There is manifest inaccuracy in this account, though, inasmuch as Mr. Phillips was not yet born, at that time, but we of course give the story as it is related to us by eyewitnesses. Mr. John Russell Young, who was in the audience, rose and said that Miss Anthony's explanation was entirely sufficient, and that she might now take her seat. The lecturer then proceeded to discuss her subject, girls. She said, however, "This is not a newspaper report, is it?" Soon after this, Louis Philippe invited Miss Logan to visit Paris. He represented that he should consider it an honor at any time to welcome the beautiful demoiselle to the palace of the Tuileries. He remarked in a postscript that his dinner hour was 12 o'clock, noon, sharp, and that his hired man had instructions to pass Miss Logan at any time. Accordingly, our siren departed hungrily for the capital of the French. Her career in Paris is well known to every mere ordinary schoolboy, wherefore dwell. Madame de Staël's dressmaker called on her. A committee of strong-minded milliners solicited the honor of her acquaintance. George Francis Train proposed an alliance with her for the purpose of hurling imperial jacasserie from its tottering throne. Other honors were conferred on her. Returning to her native motherland in 1812, she once more resumed her career as a public speakeress. How wonderful that career has been, does not the world know? If not, why not? She has lectured in 14,364,812,719 towns between San Francisco on the one hand and California on the other. Upwards of 14 million young men's Christian associations have crowded to hear her thrilling eloquence, and lecture committees all over the land have grown fat and saucy on the enormous profits yielded by her engagements. Country editors, who, before speculating in tickets of admission, were without shoes to their feet, have been suddenly converted into haughty despots and bloated aristocrats by their prodigious gains. And Miss Logan herself is said to be worth $250. Comic zoology. Jenna, Corvus. The common crow. This ravenous bird abounds in all temperate regions, and is a fowl of sober aspect, although a rogue in grain. Crows, like time-serving politicians, are often on the fence, and their proficiency in the art of caucusing entitles them to rank with the radical spoilsmen denounced by the sardonic Dawes. In time of war they haunt the battlefield with the pertinacity of newspaper specials, and have a much more certain method of making themselves acquainted with the organization of military bodies than the gentlemen of the press who pick the brains of fugitives from the field for their information. In time of peace the crow leads a comparatively quiet life, and it is no novel thing to see him walking in the fields devouring with great apparent interest the yellow-covered cereals. Agriculturists have strong prejudices against the species, and allege, not without reason, that large crow crops indicate diminished harvests. The most persistent enemy of the crow, however, is the martin, which attacks it on the wing with unfaltering pluck, and compels it to show the white feather. This variety of the genus Corvus was well known to the ancients. Those solemn boars, the Latin augurs, were in the habit of foretelling the triumph or downfall of the Roman eagles by the flight of crows, and Saint Peter was once convicted of 3 breaches of veracity by a crow. The bird has also been the theme of song, the carnivorous exploits of 3 of the species having been repeatedly chanted by popular minstrels. A Greek author has described the crow as a cheese-eater, but that's a fable. Though fond of a rare bit of meat, it does not care a mite for cheese. Nothing in the shape of flesh comes amiss to this rapacious creature, yet, much as it enjoys the flavor of the human subject, it relishes the cheval mort. During the late war, our government, with exemplary liberality, purchased thousands of horses to feed the southern crows. The consequence was that our cavalry charges were tremendous. The appearance of the crow is grave and clerical, but it is nevertheless an awful bird when engaged on a tear. It generally goes in flocks, and the prints of its feet may be seen not only on the face of the country, but in many instances on the faces of the inhabitants. Naturalists do not class it with the edible fowls. There may be men who can eat crow, but nobody hankers after it. The story of the man who swallowed 3 black crows lacks confirmation. Looking at the whole tribe from a rational point of view, however, we have no hesitation in pronouncing them excellent food, for powder. In this category may be included the copper-colored crows on our western frontier. The church militant. That Brooklyn is a city of churches has long been known to people of average intelligence. The following item, however, taken from a daily paper, is very suggestive of the old saying, "The nearer the church etc." John Beatty bit off W.M. Harper's face in April last, at a church fight in Brooklyn, and then went to sea. Last night he came back, and was arrested by Officer Fox, who will take him before Justice Walsh today. Harper is disfigured for life. The matter-of-fact way in which the expression, "a church fight," is used by the writer of the above item, seems to indicate that tabernacular conflicts are rather the rule than the exception in deeply religious Brooklyn. We were not prepared to expect, though, that theological controversy ever ran further in Brooklyn than to the extent of putting a head on one's antagonist, though now it appears that biting his face off is more the thing. The statement that Harper is disfigured for life goes for nothing with us, as that depends altogether on what sort of looking man he was previous to the removal of his features by means of a dental apparatus. The stern parent. Daughter, well, to tell the truth, I did not think much of the close of the sermon. Father. Probably you were thinking more of the clothes of the congregation. The war. It is with feeling of intense satisfaction and self-complacency that Mr. Punchinello submits to his readers the following dispatches relative to the Great Railroad War, which have been collected at a fabulous cost by a large corps of reporters and correspondents specially detailed for the purpose. War declared. EIE Palace. It is rumored that the unpleasantness which has for some time past existed between the rival powers of the Erie and the Central, will shortly culminate in open hostilities. Colonel Fisk, assisted by 12 secretaries, is said to be actively engaged in drawing up a formal declaration. Great enthusiasm prevails here. The Erie Gallop and Fisk Guard March, price 50 cents, including full-length portrait of Captain Spencer, are played nightly in the Opera House, and are vociferously redemanded. Every member of the 9th has been notified to hold himself in readiness to turn out at 15 minutes' notice. Later. Erie accepts the war which Vanderbilt proffers her. The blonde usher, accompanied by an extensive retinue of brother ushers, will bear the gauge of battle to the tyrant of the Central. He will cast it boldly at Vanderbilt's feet. It is announced that he will proceed to his destination by way of the 8th Avenue car line. The reply of the Hudson River potentate is looked forward to with great interest. Central reports. Vanderbilt received the declaration of war with seeming calm. On the departure of the Erie emissary, however, his fortitude forsook him. He threw himself on the neck of a baggage porter and wept aloud. At a late hour this evening a trusted agent left here for the Tribune office. He is said to have held a long conference with Mr. Greeley, the particulars of which have not transpired. It is supposed by many to portend an alliance, offensive and defensive, between the King of Central and the philosopher of Printing House Square. From EIE. Activity is the order of the day here. Colonel Fisk's $20,000 team went to the front this morning. They are to be broken into the turmoil of war by being led gently to and fro, before a Supreme Court injunction. A central spy, who was captured during the day, was immediately tried by court-martial, and sentenced to be suspended from the flagstaff on top of the building. He was executed at noon, a copy of the Tribune being tied to his feet, to add force to his fall and curtail his sufferings. From legal documents found in his possession, the wretched being is supposed to have been a minion of the law. The Narragansett and Long Branch boats are being rapidly got ready for active service. Their armament will consist of Parrott guns of large caliber. Fisk says that Vanderbilt will hear those Parrotts talk. Dispatches from the Central. Vanderbilt is preparing for a grand flank movement upon the Erie forces. He will transport passengers at 1 cent per head, insure their lives for the trip, feed them on the way, and present them, on parting, with a copy of H.G.'s paper. He has been reinforced by the Tribune, which will continue to harass the enemy by attacks in the rear. Advices from ERIE. Victory. By a well-executed movement, the Narragansett fleet under command of Admiral Fisk have succeeded in cutting off the Tribune's connection with Long Branch. A panic prevails in the Tribune office. Horace Greeley threatens, in retaliation, to lecture on farming along the route of the Erie Railway, to the ruin of the agricultural interest of the district. A meeting of prominent farmers has been convened to protest against this outrage, and a strong body of Erie troops have been sent to prevent H.G.'s advance. It is proposed, in case of attack, to illuminate the Erie Palace by means of Colonel Fisk's big diamond, which, it is estimated, would prove more powerful than a dozen calcium lights. If this should not be dazzling enough, it is suggested that a glimpse of the Colonel's $5,000 uniform might have the desired effect. Amongst the novel instruments of warfare which the contest has given birth to, is a new ball projected by the Prince of Erie. It will be given at Long Branch, and will, no doubt, be very effective. Latest from Long Branch. As the Plymouth Rock was nearing the pier here this morning, an elderly man, whose profane language had attracted the attention of the officers of the vessel, was arrested by order of Col Fisk. It proved to be the Sage of Chappaqua. He was attired in a clean shirt collar, by means of which he no doubt hoped to avoid recognition. In his traveling bag was found a toothbrush and several copies of the Tribune. Upon being tried and convicted of carrying contraband of war, he was sentenced to give forthwith his reasons why J.C. Bancroft Davis should not be dismissed from his present office of Assistant Secretary of State. From Saratoga. The news of Mr. Greeley's capture has affected the Commodore to such an extent as to stretch him on a bed of sickness. Jay Gould is reported marching on Saratoga with a strong force. Latest, peace. Central has capitulated. Erie is victorious. Today a treaty is drawn up by which everybody is made happy except Mr. Greeley, who, it is stipulated, must feign total ignorance of farming whenever he journeys by the Erie Railway. The place to look for them. The Sun, a few days ago, had an editorial article about a reported theft of a box containing 4 large boa constrictors. Might not a search in the editorial boots disclose the whereabouts of the missing reptiles? A T. Stewart and Company, for the accommodation of strangers, have opened a large and elegant assortment of dress goods, silks, plain and plaid poplins, empress cloths, satins de chine, new-style cloakings, Paris and domestic-made suits extremely cheap, children's elegantly embroidered cloaks, dresses, infants' robes, Paris novelties in ladies' basques, sacques, and a large assortment of housekeeping goods, carpets and curtain materials, embroidered lace and muslin curtains, ladies' underwear and general outfitting, hosiery, Alexandra's celebrated kid gloves, splendid quality and new style sash ribbons, sashes, neckties, millinery, and trimming ribbons, and the above have been received per recent steamers, and will be offered at extremely attractive prices. Strangers visiting our city are respectfully invited to examine Broadway, 4th Avenue, 9th and 10th Streets. Punchinello. The first number of this illustrated humorous and satirical weekly paper was issued under date of the 2nd of April, 1870. The press and the public in every state and territory of the Union endorse it as the best paper of the kind ever published in America. Contents entirely original. Subscription for 1 year, with $2 premium, $4 6 months, without premium. 2.003 months. 1.00 single copies mailed free. 4. 10. We offer the following elegant premiums of L. Prang and Company's chromos for subscriptions as follows: a copy of paper for 1 year, and The Awakening, a litter of puppies. Half chromo. Size 8-3/8 by 11-1/8, $2 picture, $4 a copy of paper for 1 year and either of the following $3 chromos, Wild Roses. 12-1/8x9. Dead Game. 11-1/8x8-3/8. Easter Morning. 6-3/4x10-1/4, $5 a copy of paper for 1 year and either of the following $5 chromos, Group of Chickens, Group of Ducklings, Group of Quails. Each 10x12-1/8. The Poultry Yard. 10-1/8x14. The Barefoot Boy, Wild Fruit. Each 9-3/4x13. Pointer and Quail, Spaniel and Woodcock. 10x12, 4. $6.50 a copy of paper for 1 year and either of the following $6 chromos, The Baby in Trouble, The Unconscious Sleeper, The Two Friends. Dog and Child. Each 13x16-1/4. Spring, Summer, Autumn, 12-7/8x16-1/8. The Kids Playground. 11x17-1/2, 4, $7 a copy of paper for 1 year and either of the following $7.50 chromos, strawberries and baskets, cherries and baskets, currants, each 13x18. Horses in a storm. 22-1/4x15-1/4. 6 Central Park views. A set. 9-1/8x4-1/2, 4, $8 a copy of paper for 1 year and 6 American landscapes. A set. 4-3/8x9, price $9.00, 4, $9 a copy of paper for 1 year and either of the following $10 chromos, sunset in California. Bierstadt, 18-1/2x12 Easter morning. 14x21. Correggio's Magdalene. 12-1/4x16-3/8. Summer fruit and autumn fruit. Half chromos, 15-1/2x10-1/2. Companions, price $10 for the 2. For $10 remittances should be made in PO orders, drafts, or bank checks on New York, or registered letters. The paper will be sent from the first number, April 2d, 1870, when not otherwise ordered. Postage of paper is payable at the office where received, 20 cents per year, or 5 cents per quarter, in advance. The chromos will be mailed free on receipt of money. Canvassers wanted, to whom liberal commissions will be given. For special terms address the company. The first 10 numbers will be sent to anyone desirous of seeing the paper before subscribing, for 60 cents. A specimen copy sent to anyone desirous of canvassing or getting up a club, on receipt of postage stamp. Address: Punchinello Publishing Co., P.O. Box 2783. Number 83 Nassau Street, New York. A T. Stewart and Company. Are offering, at about 1/2 the cost of manufacture, a large lot of children's and Mrs. Plain, chine and plaid poplin suits, handsomely trimmed, suitable for the present season, $3 each, upwards. Sizes to suit the ages of 3 to 12 years. Also, the balance of their linen, lawn, and barge suits. At exceedingly low prices. The above specially deserves the attention of those visiting out city. Broadway, 4th Avenue, 9th and 10th Streets. A T. Stewart and Company have opened a large assortment of plain and fancy silks, suitable for autumn, from $1 per yard upward. Also, a case of very rich satin brocatelles, the choicest goods manufactured. Bonnets, Ponson's and a T. Stewart and Company's plain black silks, the handsomest goods imported. Trimmings, silks and satins. In great variety, cut to suit customers. Broadway, 4th Ave, 9th and 10th Streets. Divorce is ready-made. Lawyer, a divorce, madam, certainly, by all means. Boy, give the lady a divorce. The Printing House of the United States. Go.F. Nesbitt & Co., General Job Printers, Blank Book Manufacturers, Stationers, Wholesale and Retail, Lithographic Engravers and Printers, Copperplate Engravers and Printers, Card Manufacturers, Envelope Manufacturers, Fine Cut and Color Printers. 163, 165, 167, and 169 Pearl St. 73, 75, 77, and 79 Pine St., New York. Advantages: all on the same premises, and under immediate supervision of the proprietors. Tourists and leisure travelers will be glad to learn that the Erie Railway Company has prepared combination excursion or round-trip tickets, valid during the entire season, and embracing Ithaca, headwaters of Cayuga Lake, Niagara Falls, Lake Ontario, the River St. Lawrence, Montreal, Quebec, Lake Champlain, Lake George, Saratoga, the White Mountains and all principal points of interest in northern New York, the Canadas, and New England. Also similar tickets at reduced rates, through Lake Superior, enabling travelers to visit the celebrated Iron Mountains and copper mines of that region. By applying at the offices of the Erie Railway Company, numbers 241, 529 and 957 Broadway, 205 Chambers Street, 38 Greenwich Street, Cor. 125th St. and 3rd Avenue Harlem, 338 Fulton Street Brooklyn, depots foot of Chambers Street, and foot of 23rd Street, New York, number 3 Exchange Place and Long Dock Depot, Jersey City, and the agents at the principal hotels. Travelers can obtain just the ticket they desire, as well as all the necessary information. Prang's latest publications: Wildflowers, Waterlilies, Chas. Dickens. Prang's chromos sold in all art and bookstores throughout the world. Prang's illustrated catalogue sent free on receipt of stamp. L. Prang & Co., Boston. Punchinello. With a large and varied experience in the management and publication of a paper of the class herewith submitted, and with the still more positive advantage of an ample capital to justify the undertaking, the Punchinello Publishing Co. of the City of New York presents to the public for approval the new illustrated humorous and satirical weekly paper, Punchinello, the first number of which was issued under date of April 2nd. Original articles, suitable for the paper, and original designs, or suggestive ideas or sketches for illustrations, upon the topics of the day, are always acceptable and will be paid for liberally. Rejected communications cannot be returned, unless postage stamps are enclosed. Terms: 1 copy per year, in advance, $4 single copies. 10 a.m. specimen copy will be mailed free upon the receipt of 10 cents. 1 copy, with the Riverside magazine, or any other magazine or paper, price $2.50 for 5.501 copy, with any magazine or paper, price $4 for 7.00 all communications, remittances, etc., to be addressed to Punchinello Publishing Co., No. 83 Nassau Street, P.O. Box 2783, New York. The Mystery of Mr. E. Drood. The new burlesque serial, written expressly for Punchinello, by Orpheus C. Kerr, commenced in number 11. Will be continued weekly throughout the year. A sketch of the eminent author, written by his bosom friend, with superb illustrations of 1st the author's palatial residence at Bagad's Hill, Tickner's Fields, New Jersey. 2nd the author at the door of said palatial residence taken as he appears every Saturday will also be found in the same number. Single copies, for sale by all newsmen, or mailed from this office, free, 10 cents. Subscription for 1 year, 1 copy, with $2 chromo premium. $4. Those desirous of receiving the paper containing this new serial, which promises to be the best ever written by Orpheus C. Kerr, should subscribe now, to ensure its regular receipt weekly. We will send the first 10 numbers of Punchinello to anyone who wishes to see them, in view of subscribing, on the receipt of 60 cents. Address: Punchinello Publishing Company, P.O. Box 2783, 83 Nassau Street, New York. G.O. W. Wheat & Co., Printer, No. 8 Spruce Street. End of the Project Gutenberg ebook Punchinello, Volume 1, No. 25. The 17th of September, 1870. Updated editions will replace the previous one. The old editions will be renamed. Creating the works from print editions not protected by U.S. copyright law means that no one owns a United States copyright in these works, so the Foundation, and you, can copy and distribute it in the United States without permission and without paying copyright royalties. Special rules, set forth in the general terms of use part of this license, apply to copying and distributing Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works to protect the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol concept and trademark. Project Gutenberg is a registered trademark, and may not be used if you charge for an ebook, except by following the terms of the trademark license, including paying royalties for use of the Project Gutenberg trademark. If you do not charge anything for copies of this ebook, complying with the trademark license is very easy. You may use this ebook for nearly any purpose such as creation of derivative works, reports, performances and research. Project Gutenberg ebooks may be modified and printed and given away. You may do practically anything in the United States with ebooks not protected by U.S. copyright law. Redistribution is subject to the trademark license, especially commercial redistribution. Start. Full license. The full Project Gutenberg license. Please read this before you distribute or use this work to protect the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol mission of promoting the free distribution of electronic works. by using or distributing this work, or any other work associated in any way with the phrase Project Gutenberg, you agree to comply with all the terms of the full Project Gutenberg trademark symbol license available with this file or online at www.gutenberg.org/license. Section 1. General Terms of Use and Redistributing Project Gutenberg Trademark Symbol Electronic Works 1.0. By reading or using any part of this Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic work, you indicate that you have read, understand, agree to and accept all the terms of this license and intellectual property, trademark/copyright, agreement. If you do not agree to abide by all the terms of this agreement, you must cease using and return or destroy all copies of Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works in your possession. If you paid a fee for obtaining a copy of or access to a Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic work and you do not agree to be bound by the terms of this agreement, you may obtain a refund from the person or entity to whom you paid the fee as set forth in paragraph 1.e.8. 1.b Project Gutenberg is a registered trademark. It may only be used on or associated in any way with an electronic work by people who agree to be bound by the terms of this agreement. There are a few things that you can do with most Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works even without complying with the full terms of this agreement. See paragraph 1.c below. There are a lot of things you can do with Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works if you follow the terms of this agreement and help preserve free future access to Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works. See paragraph 1.e below. 1.c. The Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation, the Foundation or PGLAF, owns a compilation copyright in the collection of Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works. Nearly all the individual works in the collection are in the public domain in the United States. If an individual work is unprotected by copyright law in the United States and you are located in the United States, we do not claim a right to prevent you from copying, distributing, performing, displaying or creating derivative works based on the work as long as all references to Project Gutenberg are removed. Of course, we hope that you will support the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol mission of promoting free access to electronic works by freely sharing Project Gutenberg trademark symbol works in compliance with the terms of this agreement for keeping the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol name associated with the work. You can easily comply with the terms of this agreement by keeping this work in the same format with its attached full Project Gutenberg trademark symbol license when you share it without charge with others. 1.d. The copyright laws of the place where you are located also govern what you can do with this work. Copyright laws in most countries are in a constant state of change. If you are outside the United States, check the laws of your country in addition to the terms of this agreement before downloading, copying, displaying, performing, distributing or creating derivative works based on this work or any other Project Gutenberg trademark symbol work. The Foundation makes no representations concerning the copyright status of any work in any country other than the United States. 1.e Unless you have removed all references to Project Gutenberg. 1.e.1. The following sentence, with active links to, or other immediate access to, the full Project Gutenberg trademark symbol license must appear prominently whenever any copy of a Project Gutenberg trademark symbol work, any work on which the phrase Project Gutenberg appears, or with which the phrase Project Gutenberg is associated, is accessed, displayed, performed, viewed, copied or distributed. This ebook is for the use of anyone anywhere in the United States and most other parts of the world at no cost and with almost no restrictions whatsoever. You may copy it, give it away or reuse it under the terms of the Project Gutenberg license included with this ebook or online at www.gutenberg.org. If you are not located in the United States, you will have to check the laws of the country where you are located before using this ebook. 1.e.2. If an individual Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic work is derived from texts not protected by U.S. copyright law, does not contain a notice indicating that it is posted with permission of the copyright holder, the work can be copied and distributed to anyone in the United States without paying any fees or charges. If you are redistributing or providing access to a work with the phrase Project Gutenberg associated with or appearing on the work, you must comply either with the requirements of paragraphs 1.e.1 through 1.e.7 or obtain permission for the use of the work and the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol trademark as set forth in paragraphs 1.e.8 or 1.e.9. 1.e.3. If an individual Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic work is posted with the permission of the copyright holder, your use and distribution must comply with both paragraphs 1.e.1 through 1.e.7 and any additional terms imposed by the copyright holder. Additional terms will be linked to the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol license for all works posted with the permission of the copyright holder found at the beginning of this work. 1.e.4. Do not unlink or detach or remove the full Project Gutenberg trademark symbol license terms from this work, or any files containing a part of this work or any other work associated with Project Gutenberg trademark symbol. 1.e.5. Do not copy, display, perform, distribute or redistribute this electronic work, or any part of this electronic work, without prominently displaying the sentence set forth in paragraph 1.e.1 with active links or immediate access to the full terms of the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol license. 1.e.6. You may convert to and distribute this work in any binary, compressed, marked up, non-proprietary or proprietary form, including any word processing or hypertext form. However, if you provide access to or distribute copies of a Project Gutenberg trademark symbol work in a format other than plain vanilla ASCII or other format used in the official version posted on the official Project Gutenberg trademark symbol website, www.gutenberg.org, you must at no additional cost, fee or expense to the user, provide a copy, a means of exporting a copy, or a means of obtaining a copy upon request, of the work in its original plain vanilla ASCII or other form. Any alternate format must include the full Project Gutenberg trademark symbol license as specified in paragraph 1.e.1. 1.e.7. Do not charge a fee for access to, viewing, displaying, performing, copying or distributing any Project Gutenberg trademark symbol works unless you comply with paragraph 1.e.8 or 1.e.9. 1.e.8. You may charge a reasonable fee for copies of or providing access to or distributing Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works provided that you pay a royalty fee of 20% of the gross profits you derive from the use of Project Gutenberg trademark symbol works calculated using the method you already use to calculate your applicable taxes. The fee is owed to the owner of the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol trademark, but he has agreed to donate royalties under this paragraph to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation. Royalty payments must be paid within 60 days following each date on which you prepare, or are legally required to prepare, your periodic tax returns. Royalty payments should be clearly marked as such and sent to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation at the address specified in Section 4, Information about donations to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation. You provide a full refund of any money paid by a user who notifies you in writing, or by email, within 30 days of receipt that he does not agree to the terms of the full Project Gutenberg trademark symbol license. You must require such a user to return or destroy all copies of the works possessed in a physical medium and discontinue all use of and all access to other copies of Project Gutenberg trademark symbol works. You provide, in accordance with paragraph 1.f.3, a full refund of any money paid for a work or a replacement copy, if a defect in the electronic work is discovered and reported to you within 90 days of receipt of the work. You comply with all other terms of this agreement for free distribution of Project Gutenberg trademark symbol works. 1.e.9. If you wish to charge a fee or distribute a Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic work or group of works on different terms than are set forth in this agreement, you must obtain permission in writing from the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation, the manager of the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol trademark. Contact the Foundation as set forth in Section 3 below. 1.f1.f.1. Project Gutenberg volunteers and employees expend considerable effort to identify, do copyright research on, transcribe and proofread works not protected by U.S. copyright law in creating the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol collection. Despite these efforts, Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works, and the medium on which they may be stored, may contain defects such as, but not limited to, incomplete, inaccurate or corrupt data, transcription errors, a copyright or other intellectual property infringement, a defective or damaged disk or other medium, a computer virus, or computer codes that damage or cannot be read by your equipment. 1.f.2 Limited warranty. Disclaimer of damages, except for the right of replacement or refund described in paragraph 1.f.3. The Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation, the owner of the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol trademark, and any other party distributing a Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic work under this agreement, disclaim all liability to you for damages, costs and expenses, including legal fees. You agree that you have no remedies for negligence, strict liability, breach of warranty or breach of contract except those provided in paragraph 1.f.3. You agree that the Foundation, the trademark owner, and any distributor under this agreement will not be liable to you for actual, direct, indirect, consequential, punitive or incidental damages even if you give notice of the possibility of such damage. 1.f.3 Limited right of replacement or refund. If you discover a defect in this electronic work within 90 days of receiving it, you can receive a refund of the money, if any, you paid for it by sending a written explanation to the person you received the work from. If you received the work on a physical medium, you must return the medium with your written explanation. The person or entity that provided you with the defective work may elect to provide a replacement copy in lieu of a refund. If you received the work electronically, the person or entity providing it to you may choose to give you a second opportunity to receive the work electronically in lieu of a refund. If the second copy is also defective, you may demand a refund in writing without further opportunities to fix the problem. 1.f.4 Except for the limited right of replacement or refund set forth in paragraph 1.f.3, this work is provided to you as is, with no other warranties of any kind, express or implied, including but not limited to warranties of merchantability or fitness for any purpose. 1.f.5 Some states do not allow disclaimers of certain implied warranties or the exclusion or limitation of certain types of damages. If any disclaimer or limitation set forth in this agreement violates the law of the state applicable to this agreement, the agreement shall be interpreted to make the maximum disclaimer or limitation permitted by the applicable state law. The invalidity or unenforceability of any provision of this agreement shall not void the remaining provisions. 1.f.6 Indemnity. You agree to indemnify and hold the Foundation, the trademark owner, any agent or employee of the Foundation, anyone providing copies of Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works in accordance with this agreement, and any volunteers associated with the production, promotion and distribution of Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works, harmless from all liability, costs and expenses, including legal fees, that arise directly or indirectly from any of the following which you do or cause to occur. A. Distribution of this or any Project Gutenberg trademark symbol work. B. Alteration, modification, or additions or deletions to any Project Gutenberg trademark symbol work, and C. Any defect you cause. Section 2. Information about the mission of Project Gutenberg trademark symbol. Project Gutenberg trademark symbol is synonymous with the free distribution of electronic works in formats readable by the widest variety of computers, including obsolete, old, middle-aged and new computers. It exists because of the efforts of hundreds of volunteers and donations from people in all walks of life. Volunteers and financial support to provide volunteers with the assistance they need are critical to reaching Project Gutenberg trademark symbol's goals and ensuring that the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol collection will remain freely available for generations to come. In 2001, the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation was created to provide a secure and permanent future for Project Gutenberg trademark symbol and future generations. To learn more about the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation and how your efforts and donations can help, see sections 3 and 4 and the Foundation information page at www.gutenberg.org. Section 3. Information about the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation. The Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation is a non-profit 501(c)(3) educational corporation organized under the laws of the state of Mississippi and granted tax-exempt status by the Internal Revenue Service. The Foundation's IN or Federal Tax Identification Number is 64-6221541. Contributions to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation are tax-deductible to the full extent permitted by U.S. federal laws and your state's laws. The Foundation's business office is located at 809 North 1500 West, Salt Lake City, UT 84116. 801-596-1887. Email contact links and up-to-date contact information can be found at the Foundation's website and official page at www.gutenberg.org/contact section 4. Information about donations to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation. Project Gutenberg trademark symbol depends upon and cannot survive without widespread public support and donations to carry out its mission of increasing the number of public domain and licensed works that can be freely distributed in machine-readable form accessible by the widest array of equipment, including outdated equipment. Many small donations, $1 to $5,000, are particularly important to maintaining tax-exempt status with the IRS. The Foundation is committed to complying with the laws regulating charities and charitable donations in all 50 states of the United States. Compliance requirements are not uniform and it takes a considerable effort, much paperwork and many fees to meet and keep up with these requirements. We do not solicit donations in locations where we have not received written confirmation of compliance. To send donations or determine the status of compliance for any particular state, visit www.gutenberg.org/donate. While we cannot and do not solicit contributions from states where we have not met the solicitation requirements, We know of no prohibition against accepting unsolicited donations from donors in such states who approach us with offers to donate. International donations are gratefully accepted, but we cannot make any statements concerning tax treatment of donations received from outside the United States. U.S. laws alone swamp our small staff. Please check the Project Gutenberg web pages for current donation methods and addresses. Donations are accepted in a number of other ways, including checks, online payments and credit card donations. To donate, please visit www.gutenberg.org/donate. Section 5. General information about Project Gutenberg trademark symbol Electronic Works. Professor Michael S. Hart was the originator of the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol concept of a library of electronic works that could be freely shared with anyone. For 40 years, he produced and distributed Project Gutenberg trademark symbol ebooks with only a loose network of volunteer support. Project Gutenberg trademark symbol ebooks are often created from several printed editions, all of which are confirmed as not protected by copyright in the US unless a copyright notice is included. Thus, we do not necessarily keep ebooks in compliance with any particular paper edition. Most people start at our website, which has the main PG search facility, www.gutenberg.org. This website includes information about Project Gutenberg trademark symbol, including how to make donations to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation, how to help produce our new ebooks, and how to subscribe to our email newsletter to hear about new ebooks. Punchinello Volume 1. Number 25. Published by the Punchinello Publishing Company, 83 Nassau Street, New York. The full Project Gutenberg license,